In the very beginning, we started working with women when we talked about women's rights and started empowering them and telling them about their rights. Every now and then we got reports of women being beaten by their husbands or fathers or other family, that why are you talking about your rights, and you are not going to some like good companies or some good trainings and you are learning these things. So from there we started thinking that we should like not focus on women, because men are the main controller of the powers in the society. So we need to talk with them first and see if we could sensitize some like-minded men and engage them in empowering women in their homes. And that idea worked very well. And now we have various groups of young boys, men in the society, or also in the elders, like the council of elders that we have. So they are now like talking about women empowerment, women rights, opportunities to women and girls in their homes and the society.
Nature Solutionaries is a podcast about conservationists who do amazing things for nature and bring inspiration into our lives. Hi, and welcome back to Season 2 of Nature Solutionaries. In this season, I present the work of grassroots activists who have improved the reproductive health of their communities, the health of local ecosystems, and also the economic situation of people by introducing sustainable livelihoods. Today, we are going to get an insight into the situation of women in Pakistan, because that's where our guests Erfaan Hussein and Neelum Rahim work. Their NGO, beautifully called The Awakening, has a very important mission: advancing women's rights, building a feminist leadership, and fighting for social justice in a country that has been hit hard by devastating floods last year that killed more than 1,700 people. Erfaan and Neelum, I'm really excited that you accepted the invitation. Welcome to Nature Solutionaries, or should I rather say Assalamu alaikum or salam?
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum assalam, Veronica. Thank you very much for inviting us to this important podcast.
Thanks a lot for coming on the show. Before we dig into more complicated issues, I'd like to start this interview with a simple question. Why did you decide to name your NGO The Awakening?
Yeah, so The Awakening has its own history. As I hail from Swat Valley, which once remained under the stronghold of the Taliban, and I've been working for years to protect and advocate for the rights of girls and women in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province of Pakistan by engaging with both men and women to dissuade them from marrying off their daughters early. So being born into a conservative and strongly male-dominated family in district Swat, I was expected to be as manly as a strong and fearless tribal Pashtun who never cries or never show feelings. So seeing from childhood my mother being beaten by my father every now and then or on minor issues, and all my three sisters being denied opportunities and married at early ages at age of 12, 13 and 14, and bearing children at small ages and being beaten and mistreated by their in-laws inspired me to take up the cause of protecting the rights of girls and women. So I learned that women are not even allowed to make decisions about their bodies. How can women be empowered in a society where discrimination against women and girls is common? So if women cannot make their own decisions, so how can they make decisions in the communities or in the families? So seeing my elder sister who lived in an abusive relationship for like 15 years and with no one to support her, I talked to her and extended my full support to her for any decision she wants to take about her future. And she ultimately got a divorce and started supporting other women and girls in the locality and starting an all-women jirga, which we call it a council of elders, led by all women in the history of Pashtun society and Pakistan. So hence I started taking small steps to talk to my sisters and women within the family about the violence and ill treatment, and they received from their in-laws and their families. So these small steps led to the inception of an organization which we named The Awakening, like a new dawn and a new beginning for the women and girls of the society, to protect girls and women by taking pragmatic steps like protesting, sensitizing, and informing the law enforcement agencies, pressurizing the higher officials responsible for protecting human rights, and raising awareness on human rights. So, but working in rural areas of Pakistan by challenging the patriarchy is not so simple and easy, and we learned it very quickly.
Yes, and we're definitely going to talk about that. Thank you so much for sharing your personal story. It's very moving, and I hope that your sisters are doing better now. What about you, Neelum? What is your story? How did you get involved in supporting women?
We are three sisters and we do not have any brother. So we were repeatedly made to feel that you don't have brother, you cannot do anything, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. My parents were repeatedly told that why you are educating your daughter, what they should do, they cannot do anything. So when I was studying, and then I saw the era of Taliban, like women education were banned, and like women cannot go outside the home, like their rights were banned. So that time I decided that I will work for women empowerment. I have seen so many problems related, like my education, and I was like patriarchy is deeply rooted in our area. So I have seen that all the power exercised by men. So I have decided then I will do work for women rights, and I will aware them so they would be able to raise their voice for their rights.
Both of you have mentioned some of the ways how patriarchy is expressed in the society. For example, beating women or not supporting them in pursuing education. I was also reading on your website that many traditions in your region not only validate violence against women, for example, marriage from an early age or domestic violence, but also in bartering women's lives for the sake of honor. Could you explain how stringent religious, family, and tribal customs influence women's daily lives in the Swat Valley?
The women and girls of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province of Pakistan are living under a tribal and feudal system that is based on patriarchy. The norms and values of this patriarchal and tribal systems are presented as Islamic one by the religious groups. A tribal code of culture is followed in the name of Pakhtunwali. The Pakhtunwali has special status that grants recognition to tribal customs and traditions, a status of customary law. It comprises of notions such that honor, revenge, institutions such as jirga, council of elders, marrying girls for resolving feuds. Most of these customary institutions, practices, and interpretations are highly gender biased. They exclude, marginalized, and restrict women's role in social, political, judicial, public, and private spheres. Hence, establish the superiority of men over women within the family and society at large. Also, in the most cases of early marriages, the relation of wife and husband converted to conflict and then violence, which afterward leads to enmity between two families and leading to prolonged conflict, injuries, and death between relatives of both wife and husband. So many traditions not only validate violence against women, such as early age marriage, early pregnancies, domestic violence, but also in bartering women's lives for the sake of honor. Such a custom is called swara, which is an evil social practice in which little girls are married to elderly men as a compensation of crimes being done by men. So according to our data, almost like 35 to 50 women and girls are killed each year in the name of honor, while around 60 commit suicide due to various reasons. 67% of girls are married at an early age. Through the centuries, honor killings have become deeply rooted in cultural and social norms, not just in rural districts like Shangla, Buner, Dir, Chatral, Bajor, and Swat, but around Pakistan. Women and girls are not even allowed to make decisions about their own bodies. The women and girls of our society have accepted and internalized all these discriminations. A woman who suffers violence but doesn't say anything is much admired in the village as a role model. A good woman submits to her husband or her father or her brother. And there are many proverbs or sayings which reveal traditional thinking that are unfriendly toward women and girls. These practices restrict girls and discriminate against them. Furthermore, girls that go against traditional practices have a bad name attached to them. Like, for example, I will translate it into English. It says that we have a proverb, it's called like a true Pashtun lady spends her whole life to a shrub. So, which means like a loyal Pashtun lady dedicates her whole life to one man, no matter how bad that person is. Another proverb is like in palanquin from father's home and in coffin from husband's home, which means like a Pashtun lady should spend her whole life with her husband and remains loyal to him no matter whatever he does, and goes out in the coffin from her husband's home. And another saying is like when a girl is born, there is no dead corpse in the house, but there is crying, which means like birth of a girl child is considered to be a curse over the family, and there is mourning over her birth as if somebody has died. These are some of the gender stereotypes that exist in our society and supported by cultural norms of patriarchy. There is continued injustice and violence being done to young women and girls. They are given in marriage as compensation of crimes being done by men. They are brutally beaten, and many times body parts are cut because they are young and not in a position to do domestic chores. So they are not properly fed or educated and harassed in the streets by spoiled persons. They are expected to be silent and remain quiet when their family members or husbands order them, as this is considered to be a great sign of loyalty and respect.
Wow, I don't know what to say. That's just horrible. How do the women feel about this, Neelum? You are a woman and you grew up in these conditions of the patriarchal society. So do women complain about this, or do they try to do something against it, or did they just get used to it and are too afraid to speak up?
Ma'am, we are the victim of worst terrorism and worst patriarchy. Like in the whole Pakistan, there is a patriarchal system, but in Swat, patriarchy is very strong. In Pashtun culture, as Erfaan said earlier, in Pashtun culture, all the power exercised by men. Like all the men, they have the authority. Either it's about their education, it's about their health, it's about their social life. All the things are in the control of men. And as you asked me that like they realize, like women, even they are not realized that things, they are not aware about their rights. Like they accept that patriarchy and they promote the patriarchy. Like this is the issue, that people are not aware, they accept and they promote. And like they our culture is very rigid, so they are not they are not flexible to accept new things. So even they are not aware about their laws, they are not aware about their rights. Like in Pakistan, like as I told you, that we are the victim of terrorism, so we are also suffering these impacts also on our lives. And we are also suffering from patriarchy. Gender discrimination is very common here. Early marriage is very common here. Honor killing ratio is very high in Sawat. But people, it's very normal. Like it's very nobody is talk about like these things are illegal. These should be like no. Like I would say that there is no specific measure are taken to prevent it. Even state is not very much interested. Even like our in our society, people accept these things. The bad thing about these is that all these violence are accepted by the people and they promote these things.
So when you suddenly come there and start explaining to the women and to the men that they have the right to control their fertility and that they have rights to education and employment, etc., they must perceive you as very unusual or extraordinary or strange. Or what are the reactions of the people who hold these traditions dear to their heart when you come to them and explain them these things? What reaction do you get?
A woman is considered very inferior in our culture. Like when we go to them, when we told them that these are their rights, first they are not ready to accept these things. Like these things are very new for them. So what we first do, like we are working on behavioral change, which is not easy. So first what we do, we mobilize them, we talk to them, we go there and we try to rapport building there to sit with them, to talk with them, to realize them that there is another world. They are even like in Pakistan, they are in a denial situation. Our situation is going worse day by day just because that we are in a denial. Things are here, but people deny all these things.
What do you mean that people deny these things?
Like gender discrimination exists in our society, but people accept gender discrimination. They culturally and religiously justify these violences. So how can we prevent them if somebody is in denial? First we need to accept these things for to if we want to prevent them. First we need to accept these things, that these problems are existing in our society, so then we would be able to work on that. So what we do, we try to sensitize them. Gender sensitization, we do trainings, awareness session on gender sensitization with girls, with men, with boys, with elders. We tried even with government department, we do gender sensitization session with them. Like they are not aware about the gender related issue, they are not sensitized on these things. They accept that, they say that this is our culture, this is our religion, these are our traditions, and they are not ready to change these things.
It's so important to involve men in these discussions. I think that a lot of people forget about that.
Yes, yes, yes. So basically, when we started working, we also, in the very beginning, we started working with women, and we talked about women's rights and started empowering them and telling them about their rights. So every now and then we got reports of women being beaten by their husbands or fathers or other men in the family. That why are you talking about your rights, and you are not going to some like good companies or some good trainings, and you are learning these things. So from there we started thinking that we should like not focus on women, because men are the main controller of the powers in the society. So we need to talk with them first and see if we could sensitize some like-minded men and engage them in empowering women in their homes. And that idea worked very well. And now we have various groups of young boys, men in the society, or also in the elders, like the council of elders that we have. So they are now like talking about women empowerment, women rights, opportunities to women and girls in their homes and the society. So it was a good experience. So we were doing it all the way around and the wrong way. So this was a great like learning for us. In the beginning, we had to face several issues, like the women or the girls that we trained. It had a backlash from the society and their, even in the male in their families or in the communities. So we started working with men and boys then.
That's smart. Yes. You're part of the Men Engage initiative, right? Which is this global network of organizations that do what you are doing, try to involve men in promoting the human rights and gender equity. And I must say that I also, for a long time, I also believed that, when you try to promote women's rights, then it's a women's issue and it's a conversation between women. I read in some book that unless women have freedom in their home, they can have freedom outside of their home. So unless they negotiate with their husband or with their father or brother or whoever they live with, the conditions that they can study and work, etc., then this freedom just remains very theoretical. So I think that it's great that you've realized that and that now you're involving men. Are younger generations of boys and girls more open to human rights or to gender equity?
The young generation, they show flexibility, they are ready to listen, they are like we have group, like we have the hope that we will, some of them, they started education, they started things which they were doing, and they think that these things were good, but that was not, and they were like there are so many examples which I can tell you that, yeah, we are like we have the hope that we can change them. They have the spark, like, but it will take more time. Like, it's not easy task, like it will take time. It's not a just we can say that it is just for, like, we will do a project. It's not a project thing. It will take time to convince them, to mobilize them. Like, behavioral change doesn't come easily. It's take time.
What needs to happen so that women are more liberated or empowered in the Swat Valley?
But I believe that through a combination of factors such as education, awareness, intergenerational dialogues, and advocacy, gradual shifts in attitude can occur, even among older generations. There are several factors to this. The feminist movement in Pakistan started some 35 to 40 years ago, and we started seeing it bearing fruit in the past decade, where many pro-women legislations have been passed, and we are seeing women movements like Aurat March, etc., that has started. The war against terrorism, rapid urbanization, use of internet and influx of social media at large scale, and use of social media for peace-building campaigns, the citizens' uprising for peace promotion has led to a change in the mindset of the new generation. The new generation is more open to questioning traditional beliefs and embracing new ways of thinking, including attitudes towards women and gender roles.
And one thing which I want to add, like, we want to, like, people, especially men, has this misconception that we are against them. We are not against them. We are against patriarchy. We are against sexism. Like, we are not against men. We are not anti-men. We want to resolve, we want to prevent these issues. We are not against men.
You're against violence, which is unjust, right?
Yeah, we are against injustice. We are not against the men. We want to work with them. We want to work with them in a collaboration to end all these violences from our society.
I mean, when men also wouldn't like to be beaten and denied access to school and made to, stay at home for their whole lifetime raising a lot of kids. So why do they impose this on women?
Many people tell us that you guys are working here on Western agendas and you are following Western policies and those. And our answer is very simple, that our agenda is human rights. Wherever it is, we are following the agenda of human rights.
I thought that you could be accused of promoting the Western agenda. Actually, that's the easiest argument that anyone can make, to put you down. But you have a good mission or a purpose. So I wanted to talk about one more thing. I wanted to talk about family planning and reproductive health because I think it's so important. How do you fight patriarchal values, for example, the opposition of men to family planning?
So family planning is very controversial subject here. Like, some says that it is right, some believe that it is a sin. So family planning, still we have a population welfare department. They have a family planning program in our country, but still they have facing a lot of issue just because of that, like, Islamic argument. Like, every ulama has their own interpretation about the family planning. So this is a very controversial subject here. Even people not openly talk about family planning. It's considered a taboo subject to talk on it. So family, like, we cannot speak family planning openly with someone. If even in the community, if we do awareness session about family planning, so we do it with a proper manner. Like, especially elder women, they don't like that we go there and talk with their women about the family planning. They do not accept family planning. They say that it's against Islam.
And is it? What is the official position of Islam on family planning?
There is no clear official position. As I told you that we have different different ulmas, and they have their own interpretation. So we do not have any single interpretation. Although population welfare department, they include ulmas, different ulmas and different scholars for the campaign, but still this is a issue. Like, we do not have any single in Islam. There is like a hazel withdrawal, which they believe, some ulama believe, that family planning exists at that time of Prophet, peace be upon him, but some believe that no, this is a weak hadith. So like, still it's a controversial issue, and ulama are not agree on one point about the family planning agenda.
I heard that spacing of children is more acceptable to talk about in Islam than family planning. Is that true?
Yeah, this is true. Like, when you have more kids, so your status will be like, so your status determined by the number of children you have. If you have more son, then your status is high. If you have less son, then your status is low.
And how many children do you have?
I have just one.
And you, Erfaan?
I have one kid. Discussion on subjects such as reproductive health, family planning is considered as taboo and no one talks about it. So we have been very cautious about such discussions, and with the passage of time, increase in urbanization, and most importantly with advancement technology and online social media platforms have been a blessing in disguise to initiate dialogues with men and boys on taboo subjects.
I noticed that a big part of your work is engaging religious leaders. I can imagine that this must be super challenging. How do you work with them on issues of family planning and, in general, women's bodily autonomy?
So we use statistics from our data to initiate a dialogue, and as per our research survey in District Swat, 67% of girls are married at young age, that is like with 14, 15, in the tribal rural areas, and they are forced to bear the burden of pregnancy at an early age, leading to complications in birth delivery and premature birth and infant deaths. We have observed a trend in semi-urban and urban settings that girls are tricked by men into premarital relationships and are left impregnated. Due to the fear of stigma, they go to quacks and untrained professionals for abortion, leaving them with post-abortion complications. And majority of unsafe abortion providers are lady health visitors and nurses and different quacks. This is a point to ponder, as almost all post-abortion care trainings are given to doctors only and not to the actual providers who currently offer these services. So, and in another study that we conducted by our team at The Awakening shows that in Pashtun society, men opt for more children, especially boys, and women are considered to be only childbearing machines, and women who bear the brunt of pregnancy and childbirth have the least say in the decision-making process. An average family size is like 7 to 8 children in the semi-urban areas and 9 to 11 children in the rural areas, which lead to severe reproductive health complications for women. And abortion services are sought not only by teenage married and unmarried girls, but also by married women, usually uneducated and resident of rural areas above 30 years of age, having 7 to 8 children, and they seek to stop unintended pregnancies. So we educate and aware men and boys about accurate and evidence-based information on the importance of reproductive rights, contraception methods, safe abortion practices, and the overall impact of women's health and well-being.
Can you also speak to how you engage religious leaders? Because I find that really interesting and important, because as you mentioned, there are a lot of barriers to women using contraception, and some of them are the traditions, customs, or religious beliefs. So how do you work with religious leaders?
Yes, engaging prayer leaders and imams is a path-breaking strategy that has strengthened our approaches in discussion about women's rights and family planning. So in Pakistan, the religious leaders play a great role in the lives of ordinary people, as they have the mouthpiece to mend the minds of the communities. There are many imams that are fundamentalist and have extremist mindset, but there are also those who are progressive and believe in equal opportunities. So we identify and visit such imams and their madrasas to support our advocacy and awareness campaigns, and they have a deep impact on the lives of the people, as the people listen to them, and the students who study in their madrasas are directly impacted by their teachings. So these students, when graduate from such progressive madrasas, are themselves progressive minded, so people listen to them. Majority of the Muslims in Pakistan do not know the exact meaning of the Holy Quran, and they are not aware about its teaching. The main source of learning about religion and Quran for these people is the Imam and or the religious leaders whom they blindly follow. So, however, there is also resistance or skepticism from certain segments of the population. Traditional beliefs, cultural norms, and ingrained attitudes sometimes lead to resistance or misunderstanding of the messages conveyed by the progressive Imams. So, some individuals perceive these messages are deviating from their understanding of religious teachings or cultural expectations. So we engage liberal imams or those more who are more progressive minded, whom people listen to and follow their teachings. And imams like these prayer leaders or imams often frame family planning messages within the context of religious teachings and principles. So they highlight Quranic verses or hadiths that support the concept of responsible parenthood, moderation, and the well-being of individual and families. By grounding these messages in religious texts, they aim to bridge the gap between faith and family planning.
It was really interesting how you mentioned that a lot of people follow what the religious leaders tell them without really studying the core text, Quran. And it reminds me of the situation here in Europe where often when you ask people who go to church if they read the whole Bible, they also didn't. So it's pretty similar everywhere that people follow what the religious leaders say without studying the text.
There is a whole chapter in the Holy Quran which is called Surah Nisa. Nisa means women. So the whole chapter is about women and women rights in Islam. But actually no one actually follows it. Like in our areas, when we talk about women empowerment and when you give reference from the Holy Quran, then the people jump to like cultural norms. They say that, okay, it must have been in the religion, but our cultural or societal norms do not allow these. And when you talk about, especially when it comes to inheritance rights, to give inheritance rights to women in the home, and when you talk with them in the culture, then they jump onto another subjects. Like they are cherry picking things from the holy scriptures or the culture or the customs that they follow, which is very unfortunate, but it exists in our society.
Yes, patriarchy is so strong. Since our time is almost up, I'd like to ask you one final question. Why do you think people in other parts of the world should support the rights of women and girls in Pakistan?
We are fighting against patriarchy, we are fighting against terrorism, we are fighting against extremism. Our economy is low, so we really need to work on the empowerment of women. Like we need to empower women economically, and for that we need a fund to give them skill, to give them, if we give them a skill, then they would be able to earn for themselves. Like they are totally dependent on their men. Like economic burden on men is very high, and that's why men are like one of issue is that men are economic burden is very high on men. So like domestic violence is very high here. So if we want to overcome domestic violence and want to achieve a better life standard for our women, it is important for us to improve the life standard of women. So it would be possible if they have their own earning.
When women have access to education and economic opportunities, they are better able to support themselves and their families also. So this positively impacts future generations, as educated and economically empowered women are more likely to invest in the well-being and education of their children. So breaking the cycle of poverty benefits not only individuals and communities, but also contributes to global poverty reduction efforts. So as we are seeing extremism around the world, and I strongly believe that empowering women and girls is vital for countering extremism and promoting societal stability.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, to conclude it, empowering women helps women, their families, the communities, the society, the nature, and it brings more harmony in the world. So yeah, let's strive for more peace and justice and harmony, which is something that you're doing. So big kudos to you for your work, and thank you very much for this interview. Thanks so much for listening to this conversation. I hope that it left you with a feeling that no matter how challenging the environment where we live can be, it's worth trying to change it for the better. We can all be solutionaries. If you enjoyed this episode, why not listen to the next one? The easiest way is to subscribe to my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or get a monthly newsletter by subscribing to it on my website veronicaperkova.com. If you have one spare minute, please consider sharing this podcast with your closest friends. I really appreciate your help. I'm Veronika Perkova, and I look forward to talking to you soon.